Electrolytes over there.
All right. Welcome to Talking Shop. Great text, the wedding feast at Cana, beginning of the season of Epiphany, John chapter 2, 1 through 11. So much here. Just a ton of beautiful images to pull out. Pulls you through the gospel narrative, the whole story. There's a lot here. Lots for you to preach on. So we're glad you're here with us to join the conversation.
Water and wine.
That's right. Let's get after it.
Spit out my Lord in every way, yet I'm still welcome in the arms.
All right. John chapter 2, the wedding feast at Cana in Galilee. We're looking at verses 1 through 11. Right? So, on the third day, did we do anything with that?
Well,
this text is full of all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah, because it's John, so thank you very much, John. Don't do anything with the third day, because this is the third day in a long counting of days that you have to go all the way back to John's baptism in chapter 1.
Right.
So this ends up actually being the seventh day.
Right. So you got the beginning, and then you got the next day is when he says, "Behold, the Lamb of God." So that's day 2, essentially, right? And then you got the next day, he calls the disciples, and then the next day he calls Philip and Nathaniel.
Yep.
And then 3 days after that, and you're at 7.
And you're at 7.
So it's the 7th day.
This is the day of rest. This is the feast day.
Yeah.
This is the day, if you're going by the festivals, which were all 7-day festivals. On that last day, that was a Sabbath day. It was a day of celebration. It was a day of doing everything at the feast. So
then why does he say the third day?
Because it's the third day in that counting of those 7, going all the way back up into John 1.
But I just mean, why does he draw attention?
Because nothing happened in those 2 days in between. So he's got 4 days counted for in chapter 1.
And I know you guys are wondering.
Oh, now we got nothing, but I need to get to the 7th day, so on the third day.
Well, I think you do, and there certainly is a way to the third day kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
So you could. Both,
yeah.
Right? So there's a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and Jesus' mom is there. Mary's there. It says nothing about Joseph, so we don't know what's happened to him at this point. And Jesus is invited, and as we were saying when we translated it, it kind of sounds like the disciples kind of crashed.
Yeah, it does seem that way. That doesn't quite work out.
Yeah, Jesus was invited, and with his disciples.
Yeah.
Right. So
They probably contributed to running out of wine with all the disciples that were brought.
So that's the issue, right? They get there, and somebody goes to Mary, so she must have some role, or at least some standing of importance, right?
Yeah.
And says, "Hey, we're out of wine.
We're out of wine.
It's a big.
There's no more wine.
Big faux pas, I guess.
Faux pas.
You wouldn't want to do that. Run out of wine.
Yeah.
And so what does she do?
She goes to Jesus and says, "There's no wine." She finds out and she takes it to her son.
Yeah.
Some people like to point to this text as being the sadist doctrine of Mary, our intercessor. You can guess what friends do that.
Yeah.
But that's how they would answer that question.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because she's our intercessor. But we don't go that way.
No, there's nothing in the text that really calls for that, right? She's told, she goes to Jesus and just repeats it. They have no wine. And Jesus isn't exactly sweet and kind in his response to her. I mean, I guess it sounds pretty...
It's kind of formalizing.
Yes. So there is something, as I'm working my way through John, there are only 2 times in John where Jesus refers to someone as woman.
Right.
They're both his mother.
Right.
One is here.
Yeah.
The other one is at the foot of the cross. So you have to take that into the context that he's not, just kind of shoving her off. It's more, you got to take the second half of his comment. My time is not yet here. And so more it's a, why does this concern, and you could even, I think, probably translate it this way, why does this concern you or me? right?
Yeah.
Why?
But there's a
what
nice
is this,
connection there because that
to that?
at the time at the cross,
Yeah.
that is his time.
Yes.
So there's a connection from
Oh, yeah,
here
it's a
to
connection.
there.
Yeah.
So if you're tracking with the text, not only does he say this twice, you won't see Mary again in John's gospel until the cross.
Right.
She's
Yeah.
gone from the whole narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she has this conversation with him. He says, "My time or my hour is not going to come," right? And then she disappears until it is
Till the
actually
hour.
his
His
hour,
time.
his time.
Yeah.
Woman, here we are.
And you get this repeated, which I would think would cause a reader then to see these things very much in light of each other.
Yeah.
What he's doing in
You would hope
Cana
so.
is going to be informed by what he does on Calvary.
Yeah. Well, and I know the Old Testament reading in our lectionary is Isaiah 62, but I always link this text, or like to link this text, to Isaiah 25, where Isaiah 25, verse 6 is, "On this mountain the Lord of hosts will make for people a feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wine." And then it goes down and it says, "And he will swallow up death forever."
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a link between wine and resurrection as well. That's a part of that.
And so running ahead with all this imagery that's floating around, right? Verse 6, he turns to 6 stone jars. What are these jars for? Because again, I think it's important.
Ritual washing, ritual purification.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, having been involved in a couple, there's a lot of hand washing and things that go on when you're at these feasts and festivals. Before the Sabbath meals, there were mikvahs, baths all over the Temple Mount where you would go and cleanse yourself to do this. And so that purification of water was a big deal for them.
And it worked as, it was a ritual act, of course, but also a big piece of that was to confess your uncleanliness.
Yes.
Like you are unclean,
Right.
or you need this cleansing,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously that may sound over simple, but I think there's something to it that these are the jars he's using.
Yes.
Right? He's using jars for purification purposes.
Yeah.
That
John-
cleanses unclean things, and he's going to use those.
John doesn't give you details for no reason.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good
and
point.
so it's not just these are big jars, right? These jars are special. Well, and you could even see it as these jars are then themselves already purified. Right? They're ready, if you will.
Okay.
They're a good vessel to hold those gifts that God is bringing to his
That's
people.
good too. Yeah.
So
And of course, this is chapter 2, which finds itself situated between chapter 1 and chapter 3.
Is that how it works?
whoa.
And both of those talk about baptism. At least we would look
yeah.
at John 3 as
Yeah,
you need
sure.
to be born again.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Referring to baptism, and
Yeah.
Jesus is baptized, and you hear about John the Baptist's baptism of repentance and cleansing in chapter 1.
Yeah.
And so when you carry water through that
yeah,
whole thing,
absolutely.
you can see where this fits in with the cleansing.
Yeah.
So Jesus just says, he tells them to fill them up, and he says, "Now take some and give it to the
Guy in charge.
guy in charge."
Yeah, there's a
Tricklino.
It could be the MC, it could be the master of ceremonies, it could be the head steward.
Tricklino, I
Yeah,
prefer to go by.
whatever it happens to be. So.
And so he does, and when he tastes it, now the water has become wine. Ta-da! Right?
Mighty fine wine.
Yeah. And so it's not just that it's wine. I mean, that would be good enough.
Right.
But it's what?
It's water that's been changed into wine. It's
the best
good
stuff.
wine.
Good
it's
wine.
it's really or at least on the lips of this guy who has probably tasted a lot of wine.
Probably tasted a lot of wine.
If he's in charge of all of that, he's probably the one who's even saying, "No, send this back to the kitchen. It's not good enough for the guests yet," kind of thing.
It's
So
surprisingly good.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's this, the gift that Christ provides is super abundant in quality, or quantity, and also quality.
Yeah.
Right? It's good. This is a good thing. So much so that they're shocked.
Yeah.
Right? And this is, anyone who's gone out drinking, your standards go down after you've had a few, right? It's
true.
Start out, you want the good stuff when your palate is fresh, and the more you get into it, you're like, well,
and you're good with the well.
I could, yeah, exactly right.
And
And that's kind of what they argue, right? That this is the goods. You save the good stuff.
Yeah.
And bring it out now.
Yeah, and I had never seen it before, but I even like that word there. It's not just saved; it's you have guarded until now the good stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're going to link this to the Son of God bringing the good stuff, right? It's not like the good stuff hasn't always been there.
Right.
It's just that He's now made it manifest in this moment for you, right?
Yeah,
He's
kept it. Yeah, you have all that. You have the seventh day. You have is this my hour? Is this my time?
Right.
Because this will come. People will see.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of been held back, and so this kind of launches us into the gospel, saying, no, this is now His time. Like He's coming into this.
Yeah.
And what was hidden is going to be revealed, and I like that remembrance that it's not like it wasn't there the whole time.
Right.
Like it was there.
It's not like all of a sudden He's taken thought of you.
Yeah.
Right. He's actually been keeping it all along.
Right.
And is now revealing
not
it at
only
this
that,
moment,
but He Himself is now manifested.
Yeah.
The Epiphany. It's a great Epiphany verse.
Yeah, of course.
But out of the nation of Israel, the Messiah is manifested hereby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get to the last verse, the imagery here, I think preaching this, it can almost be overwhelming. The amount of things you can
I think
interact with.
I think we've talked about at least 6 different sermons already.
Oh man, yeah.
Because there's a lot there. I was just thinking too. It's also in John's Gospel, so you get this feature here. You don't get Mary again until she's at the foot of the cross, and it's right after He speaks to His mother at the foot of the cross. He gives up His spirit, and He pierces it. The soldier pierces his side, and what flows out?
Blood and water.
Blood and water, right?
Yeah.
And you get this imagery that, again, I think is pulling you through this whole text of this incredible gift. And I like teaming up with that Isaiah 25. That's really good. That here it is. This is where death gets swallowed up. This mountain where the good wine is being poured out.
Yeah.
And in between, you got John 6. You got, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part in me. Yeah. So you can follow John's verbiage, his wording, all the way through his gospel, from beginning, middle to end.
Yeah.
It's really kind of cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so powerful stuff. And then you get verse 11, which you should definitely, I think, highlight, at least somewhat. This is the first of His signs that most English texts probably do, that manifested or revealed His glory, right? I was thinking that hymn, right? God in flesh.
God in flesh made manifest.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And how many signs are there? I mean, that's, I think, one of those things like you can.
Yeah.
You could. I don't want to say you would do this in a sermon, but you could sort of challenge your people, like, hey, read John's Gospel.
Yeah, right.
See if you can find the other ones.
Right. Where are all the other signs, and in what order do they go, and what does it end with, right? And so there end up being 7 signs in John's Gospel.
That starting on the 7th day.
And they work their way all the way up to, surprise, surprise, a resurrection from the dead.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
And so you got this kind of, I think you can hint at some of that, kind of challenge your people with it. Because you also get, it's sort of confusing, and His disciples believed in Him. What does that exactly mean? Right. That's an unfolding reality too.
Yeah.
Sure it is.
What that belief is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And belief is a big word in John's Gospel, though, because he's going to end that with, these things are written that you may believe, right? So so whatever is made manifest to them, maybe it's just the fact of going back to Isaiah chapter 25 and going, oh, this is the Messiah. Not understanding all that's unpacked from that. And so you could almost say that each sign in John is more manifesting who this Jesus is, right? Filling full, going back to the jars, filling full what it means for Him to be the Christ, the Son of God.
Yeah, I always, like when I talk with Bible study or something, and I'll talk about how, like, the manifestation of Christ is like this, it's like a flower unfolding, right? Like, so it starts out, you're like, oh, I see it. And it just gets better and better. The more it opens, you start to see the brilliance of it all, and how intricate it all holds together.
Yep.
And I think that's what we already saw here. I mean, this is there's a lot here.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot. I mean, you got so purification, provision by God, superabundance, the good stuff. You got a tie into Calvary. You got the swallowing up of death. I mean, there's so many angles you can kind of
sacramental.
Yeah, sacramental.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's good. Good
Man,
stuff.
we have just written your Epiphany sermons for the next 6 years.
That's
Look
right.
at that.
That's right. But this is. We should say that this is the beginning of the season of Epiphany, which will do this. It'll feature these big moments, right? And usually, what culminates with the Transfiguration, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so these big things that show us who this is,
Yeah.
and this is just getting us started. So check out craftpreaching.com. There's some articles there that'll discuss this text and how you might preach it as well. And share any thoughts of how you're going to preach this or things you've done in the past with it. That's always good to read as well. And like, subscribe. God bless your preaching.